Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very inspiring show coming right up with special guest Naz Beheshti, and she's here to share with us her new book, Pause, Breathe, Choose. Become the CEO of Your Well-Being. Now, have you ever considered who is the CEO of your well-being? The key to thriving in today's high-pressure culture is to cultivate deep self-awareness and strong emotional intelligence, which facilitates making mindful choices that transform your life. So many of you know Naz. She's an executive wellness coach, speaker, Forbes contributor, and CEO and founder of Prananaz, a company that provides corporate wellness solutions for improving leadership effectiveness, employee engagement and well-being, and company culture. Clients include Nike, Chase, Omega Institute, Columbia University, and many more. Naz is also the co-founder of Rise to Shine, a nonprofit to help alleviate the suffering of young children in Haiti. So let's welcome to the show, Naz Beheshti.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about your new book. I have to ask you, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I would have never imagined that I would end up writing a book 5 years ago when I started writing this book, but I was very compelled to do so when my former boss and mentor, Steve Jobs, appeared in a very, very vivid dream I had on the night of February 14, 2014 it was. And it's really interesting because I have very vivid dreams often, nightly, but I never see the faces of the people in my dreams. I know who they are, but I don't see faces. But I did see Steve Jobs' face in the dream. It was very, very strong and vivid. I had only seen faces twice before in my dreams, and they were of people very close to me that had passed away. And so when Steve appeared, I saw his face, and he very confidently and clearly said that I needed to write a book about how working for him as my first job at Apple impacted my life and my career. So I really took his prophetic words seriously, and I started to write. And that was really the beginning of my journey.
Oh my goodness, what an amazing story. And so what was it like working with him?
A lot of people ask me that. It is really amazing on many levels. So first of all, it's very intense because he's a very intense man, but for good reason, because, he was a visionary and he demanded excellence and he produced excellence. But it was a wonderful learning experience. Coming out of college, my first job, it was really insightful to be able to kind of learn from such an amazing person. He really showed me firsthand what it was like to be the CEO of, a successful company and your well-being. And I didn't know at that time that's what it was, but in terms of being the CEO of your well-being. But in retrospect, when I look back on it, it's like he had it all, the successful company, and then also prioritizing his well-being in order to have that successful company. And so that I learned that really goes hand in hand. And so working for him was a really amazing experience to kind of set me on the path of where I am today, pretty much.
Yeah, not many people can say their mentor was, Steve Jobs. And especially when it comes to, the well-being aspect of it. Because when we look at that, there's so much that goes into that and it affects every part of our life.
Right. It really does. And, I'm an executive wellness coach, and I coach so many executives and leaders who are very, very successful in their professional life, but they often let their personal life or self-care, go, is not prioritized at any point like their work is. And so if only they would also prioritize their personal life like their professional, they really go hand in hand, and you don't need to sacrifice one in order to, do well. So I always say, you could both be well and do well and have success and well-being together, because most people are just striving for the success and, abandoning their well-being, in regards to that.
Well, I can understand that. I'm sure I did that a time or two during my corporate careers. And it's easy to get into this mindset where you're just going, and your personal well-being kind of falls by the wayside. So I felt like your book
Oh,
was so
definitely.
impactful.
Oh, and I'm guilty of it myself. I was that person in corporate. So I can't sit here and preach and think, sound like I was always super, healthy and prioritizing my well-being, because that's not true. And so that's really why I do what I do, is to help people who were like me and people who are not, taking care of themselves and only prioritizing their professional careers. So I'm guilty of, or I was guilty of that, not any longer.
Now you're just blazing the trail for them, right?
Hopefully, I'd like to, yes.
Well, and so, pause, breathe, choose. So where did that come from?
That was really a combination of my, my yoga and meditation practice. Really just, it's quite literal, the pause that you take when you're just like either spiraling or stressed or exhausted or whatever the case, that the state that you're in, that you're not, in a positive state. Taking a pause and taking a step back was always something that I began to do after I started my yoga practice. That really helped me become more mindful. That was kind of the start of it. So like my yoga practice, getting on my mat with my pause from my really busy day. And I always looked forward to getting onto my mat. And then, breathing. Yoga is all about breathing. I did vinyasa yoga. And so I was connecting my breath with each movement. And so that breathing was like resetting and becoming really present. And then, when you become present and you have clarity of mind, you can choose more wisely. So pause, breathe, choose, when you put that together, it's really mindfulness in action. And you don't need to be on a yoga mat. That's just kind of where it started. And then I went to India, and I talk about other, share other stories in India, that it all really came together with my meditation practice. And yoga and meditation is really like the key and foundational mindfulness practices for me that really cemented pause, breathe, choose for me. And now I use it, all my clients use it, and it's something that you could take, use at any time throughout the day. It could take, 2 seconds to 30 seconds to minutes. And sometimes a pause was like my trip to India was 6 weeks, and I paused for 6 weeks, breathing, pausing, choosing where I wanted to go next. And so it means different things for everyone at different times of their lives, but always pause, breathe, choose is a really powerful method to really become present and make better choices and live your best life.
Yeah, I thought that method is so profound and really easy to implement once you get going and you understand how it all comes together. And I really
Yeah.
love, you start your book by really kind of talking about what wealth is. And you're saying that wealth is
Mm-hmm.
well-being. And I'd love for you to share with our listeners why you believe that.
I feel very strongly about this because, wealth to many people is, about materialistic wealth and money and owning multiple homes and cars and jets and boats and you name it, but you can have all that. That's great. And, I enjoy those things myself. However, that is not the ultimate wealth, because you could have all those things. And, if you are not healthy and well, or if you have dis-ease, you aren't at ease, you don't have clarity of mind, that, you're not mentally, emotionally, physically well, how do you enjoy all those things? How do you enjoy, even if you're with your loved ones, on vacation, on your boat, or, in your vacation home, in Saint-Tropez or wherever? if you're not well, you can't enjoy it. So your well-being is really everything. It really energizes you and allows you to be present and happy and joyful, and engaged in the present moment. And so I feel like you could have everything in the world, but if you are not well, it really doesn't matter, and you cannot, enjoy it.
Isn't that the truth, right? I mean, because if
Yeah.
everything has to do with your well-being, and you could be the richest person, but if you're mentally just stressed and off, or physically
Hmm.
stressed and off, I mean, what good is that?
Right. It sucks the joy and energy out of the experience and yourself, right? So, I say, like, if you want to be end up in the most expensive bed in the world, which is the hospital bed, then don't take care of yourself, because you could end up in the most expensive bed in the world. So it's better to take care of yourself and really prioritize your total well-being, so that you can increase the quality of your life.
I think that's so important. So I know you start off chapter 1, you get into mindfulness. How do you define
Hmm.
mindfulness?
Well, mindfulness is in the nutshell presence of heart. But it really is about life unfolding in the present moment, and you actually being mindful to experience it without any judgment. Because if you're a lot of times we're sitting, we're going through the actions and movement of the day, and we may be thinking about what happened yesterday, or the past, or what's coming up next, or what we're going to have for dinner, or our next meeting, or whatever it is. We're not present. We're thinking about the past or the future. Being mindful is being present and engaged in the moment. And it's that connection between your heart and mind. So aligning your heart and your mind in that present moment and being fully present and engaged.
Do you feel like people sometimes get a little thrown by the mindfulness part, thinking that it needs to look a certain way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, most people now, it's more, I feel like, accepted and common, and people are striving to be more mindful. But typically, it's you have a visual. Lots of people have the visual of someone sitting in a lotus position and full of bliss, like smiling and just blissfully sitting in lotus position, meditating. That is like the typical, stereotypical image of mindfulness, where you can only get it on your yoga mat or meditation cushion. It's really just about that, but really it's about taking it off the mat, off the meditation cushion, and using it throughout your day. So mindfulness can become portable and actionable. And so when you learn to implement that mindfulness practice throughout your day and carry it with you throughout your day, then you are more mindful. It's a state of well-being, a state of life, and a lifestyle, rather than just a practice in a formal state. It becomes more informal and just a state of being.
Yeah, where people can really take ownership of their well-being and have it as more of an action, as opposed to something that they're just kind of maybe thinking about, but not really getting involved in.
Absolutely. It's all about taking ownership and taking charge of your life. And, how can you take charge and ownership if you're not mindful? If you don't even realize you're slipping into stress, or you don't realize that you're on autopilot and, doing what is it called? Continuing on with like bad habits. When you're not mindful of the bad habits, how do you change them? How do you replace them with good habits? How do you take charge of your life if you're not mindful? That's why, I say that, with conviction, that well-being and living your best life starts with mindfulness, because you need to be aware of how your current state is to be able to change your mindset and your behaviors.
Yeah, that makes such a huge difference. If you have no idea you have bad habits, it's like, wait a minute, how can you change any of that? So I really like how your book walks people through different ways of kind of looking at their life in a deeper way. And one of the things it
Mm-hmm.
talks about that I was really impressed with were the productivity traps. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times people never even consider that as something they need to be aware of. I'd love for you to share with our listeners what that is and why we should, be careful about falling into those.
Yeah, well, the productivity trap is I see it all the time with my clients. I mean, I was victim to the productivity trap. It's really a constant chasing of productivity through more hours and more efficient time management rather than, it's the whole thing like everyone's like working really hard, but not necessarily smart. And working smart is about managing your energy, not specifically your time. So time is a limited resource, but your energy is renewable. So it goes back to taking, really good care of yourself from what your mental self-talk is to what you're feeding your mindset to what you're actually feeding your body, the foods you're eating, what type of energy you're gaining from the choices that you make, from mindset to behavior. And so when you are, again, not mindful and not making mindful choices and just working, burning the candles at both ends, you fall into a productivity trap. You're just chasing endless, productivity through more hours and not putting any time and energy for yourself and your own self-care. And that's when the wellness gap broadens and you fall into the productivity trap.
And there it goes, a big circle all over again, right?
Exactly.
Keep going. So, so what are some ways that people can really like identify the things that are stressing them out? What are some of the signs?
Well, there's so many, from like mental, emotional, physical, and like behavioral signs of stress. Like, for example, some an inability like to concentrate or having poor judgment or constantly feeling worried or anxious would be some of the mental symptoms, for example. And some emotional symptoms would be, just feeling overwhelmed or irritable, being indecisive or just agitated, for example. And then some physical signs which are really common, are aches and pains and even digestive issues or getting sick a lot because your immune system is down. And then there's behavioral symptoms, which, some people have an increase or decrease in appetite. Some people eat their emotions. Some people don't eat at all when they're stressed. And they have, difficulty, sleeping or irregular sleeping. They can't fall asleep because they're ruminating, or they fall asleep and wake up because their mind is, just racing. So there's all these different, there's a whole list of them that I share in the book, but those are some common ones. And, sometimes what's interesting is that when I have clients come to me who are on the verge or are burnt out, they just think that's normal, some of those symptoms. Like, oh, I've always had a back pain. Well, you really shouldn't always have a back pain. That's not normal. Or like not being able to sleep because of racing thoughts, that's also shouldn't be your norm, right? So some people attribute these symptoms of stress as their norm, which, again, if you're not mindful, you can't identify these symptoms. And that's why it's so important to be able to be aware of them so you could identify them and then take charge and turn that stress into like eustress, like shift your mindset and behaviors.
Well, I found that your book was full of inspiration for people to make these adjustments and changes and develop new practices.
Thank
Why don't
you.
you share? Oh my gosh, there's so many in there. I was like, ooh, I love this. What is one that you like to share with our listeners?
Okay. So one on stress that I love that I do myself. I do all of them myself, but it depends what mood I'm in. If I for example, feel like I'm overwhelmed and have a lot of stress, and there's just so many different things I'm working on or doing. My plate's really full. I do my stress action plan, the stress action list. And I write down all my stresses. I write down what is keeping me up at night. And a lot of times I find that a lot of it is things I could cross off because they're just things that are, subjective rather than objective, meaning that I don't know 100% if they are true. It's just a concern I have of the future, like, oh, what if this happens or this could happen? Yet, it's out of my control and I don't know for sure if it will. So I only address things, not always, I'm not perfect, but I try to always address things that I can control and I could create an action step next to so that I can move myself from a point of stress closer to the point of achievement with that action step. And so in the book, you'll see the different kind of the guidance on how to create that stress action plan. And that's what I do often for myself and with clients. That's, or a very quickie one I love is if I'm just really stressed and I need a breather and I'm doing pause, breathe, choose, and I'm in between meetings or something. I love kittens and puppies. I will just go and look at my Instagram feed of cute kittens or puppies or a cute video that will make me smile and happy and just melts my heart because that immediately changes my state too. I love that one. That's one of my personal quick favorites.
Oh, who doesn't like kittens and puppies? Come on,
I know, right. And it changes your state immediately. I could be so frustrated or upset, but then how can you be when you see a cute kitten or puppy? And also another practice is gratitude. I think about something I'm grateful for in that moment too. So those are like, now I'm giving more, I could keep going, but I think the kittens, puppies, gratitude, and then my gratitude practice and the stress action plan are ones I use often.
Well, those are all really great. Thank you for sharing that with us. And one of the things that you talk about in your book that made me pause for a moment, I'm like, you're dead on about pain. You talk about pain being our greatest teacher for growth. And I think maybe when people read that, they're like, oh, that hurt even just reading it, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the cliche of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It is a cliche for a reason. It really is true. I mean, like it's when you get through something so painful, and use that pain to learn and, find the lessons from that pain, you can make it your greatest teacher because you wouldn't have experienced that or learned that lesson if you didn't go through that pain. Sometimes before I reached my older years of age, I thought I was very fortunate to have a very, good life with not much pain. And I thought to myself, it's even harder to relate to other people who go through pain when you haven't had that pain yourself. So not only is it a greatest teacher for yourself, but it's also a way to connect with other people who go through similar pains. It's a very deep experience and sheds deep insight and connection, in my opinion. So that is why I feel strongly about, pain really can be your greatest teacher for growth, but that just depends also on how you experience pain, because some people can choose to let it get the best of them and they don't receive the lessons or learn the lessons from it. And then that cliche of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger doesn't apply, because some people, part of their pain can kill them because they don't have the resilience reserve or the curiosity or the drive, the motivation to make good out of something bad. Because you could always flip something by reframing it and going through the process of learning from that experience and coming out better and stronger on the other side.
Yeah. I felt that, how you have it placed in your book, the discussion that you brought up really gives people a new way of looking at pain. So maybe if someone is kind of in a place where they're stuck with something that's painful, there is a light at the end of the tunnel there. And, you do learn a lot going through a painful experience. You gain a lot of knowledge. And I really appreciate that you included that, because a lot of times people are doing their best to avoid pain. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but at the same time, life can be a painful experience, and for someone that goes through that, they develop a little bit more compassion and understanding for maybe people around them that go through similar situations.
Right, exactly.
So, my goodness, there are so many great things in your book. We could talk all day about it. Where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about Pause, Breathe, Choose, and be part of your community?
Well, I'm on social media pretty much everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, and also my website if anyone wants to, consider hiring a coach or doing corporate wellness programs. My corporate site is prananaz.com, and then my personal site where my book is nazbeheshti.com. And then social media is where I have fun, and you can find me there also.
Well, Naz, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you, Naz. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Pause, Breathe, Choose. Become the CEO of your well-being. Again, if you'd like to connect with Naz, you can at her website, nazbeheshti.com, for more information. Pause, Breathe, Choose is available to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. And of course, it's available on Kindle. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.